That'd do it. All right, here we go. How about now? Rookie maneuver. All right, well, I said hello silently and nobody could hear me, so let me say hello again. Hey, everybody. I'll get some little background music going here. Nothing too much. Let me know if it is too loud. Oh, awesome. Well, it's been a while, hasn't it? I've not had one of these streams in a good while. Apologize for that. Let me adjust this a little. I apologize for that. It's been a crazy couple of months, I'm sure for all of you as well. What with everything that's going on. Hope everyone's happy and healthy and hanging in there. It's awesome to see so many people show up to chat. I really appreciate it. It's really great to see you all. Um, I'm I've had a lot going on. I moved. I'm in like a temporary room right now because the rest of the house is kind of crazy. And that's been really exciting, but super stressful, as you can imagine. Um, and yeah, I'll be in like a full-time office room next time I stream, which is going to be great, but it's not ready yet. There's just boxes everywhere, so yeah. Um, let's see here. Oh, I think my chat cut out for a second. Let me look into that. Uh-oh. Sorry, minor technical difficulty. Let me see if I can pop this out, maybe. Sorry about this.
If you're trying to lose belly fat, stop doing cardio.
Oh
This
gosh,
sounds
and we got an
backwards,
ad
right?
too.
Well,
All right, we're getting there. We're getting there, folks. Yeah, I had chat on like iPad screen just next to my monitor, and well, it didn't do what I wanted it to do, and now it's just telling me that I'm offline. But I don't think I'm offline because I see you all still here. So yeah, hopefully not actually offline. It's what happens when I don't do this for a little while. Forget how everything works. Perfect preparation. That's right. That's right. All these figments. Yeah, so many figments. Well, okay. I don't know. I think I'm good. Um, okay. So, what are we gonna talk about today? I'm a little nervous for today's stream. Hopefully, it will go well. Um, I've been working really hard, and I've been doing a lot of stuff, and well, for me, it's really exciting, and I think, that the trickiest part here has been to figure out how to make all of these changes in a way that will be exciting for all of you. And I think there's a lot of like great stuff included here, and a lot of the effort that's gone into it is figuring out like what's the right way to make these changes that are going to be able to kind of open up and empower the software for the long term. Um, I think Foundry's in a really exciting place right now. I mean, I use it in a couple games every week, and as a user, I really am loving it. But there's a lot more that I still want to do with the software, and so I think a lot of the upcoming stuff um, in this version is really about trying to restructure some of the foundation of the software in a way that'll allow for all of that stuff to happen, both for things that I want to develop as well as for things that the developer community that is just super fantastic wants to develop. And a lot of the reason for trying to make good design decisions is not only for me writing the software, but also for everyone else who's trying to make stuff using the software. So um, anyways, I'm probably rambling a little bit, but all of this goes to show that what I'm going to be talking to you about today is version 0.8.0, which is the first alpha, dangerous, scary new version in the 0.8 series. So it is really focused on infrastructure improvements. I know that a lot of you are really excited, and I am too, for the kind of shiny themes of '08, which is a big renovation of the audio system. I'm really excited for that. I know a lot of you are, as well as overhead tiles, which is going to be really cool. That was the community voted feature that's going to be a mainstay of '08. But before I could go straight into working on audio, and before I could go into working on overhead tiles, I needed to do a little bit of housekeeping and cleaning and strengthening of the foundation so that I have a better platform to build on, and hopefully all of you have a better platform to build on also. So this stream, I really have to warn everyone up front, it's probably going to be really dry and pretty maybe boring for a number of you. So I do apologize in advance for that. I think the next couple streams related to '08, when it really gets to this is the new audio system, or these are the overhead tiles, this is the new thing. I think those are going to be a little bit more fun, so to speak. Today's stream is really going to be a lot about what's happening under the hood to upgrade the engine of the software. Um, so yeah, so I'm going to be kind of gearing today's stream a little bit more towards um, the software developers in the group. And so if you're not if you're not a module developer, if you're not a macro wizard, if you're not any of those things, that's fine. You may still enjoy the stream, but I apologize in advance if it's a little bit nerdy in terms of getting into the technical details. Um, So I see a couple people asking about the VOD. I will keep the VOD will be on Twitch, and I'll probably this time around update the VOD to YouTube. So you'll be able to watch it later if you can't watch it live. Anyways, yeah. So I think I'll make sure that this information's available. I wanted to be sure and do this stream to get a chance to kind of go through it in person with you, and I hope that that'll make it a little bit easier for everyone to understand what is in this update and why and how's it going to affect me. This is going to be a Q&A to a degree. I mean, I will take questions as I normally try to do. I'll probably take some during the stream, and then I'll try and take more questions like after I get through the main batch of stuff. But I might be a little bit on the lighter side of questions because there's kind of a lot to get through. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. And there is some notes that I wrote this morning to kind of guide me through this, and I posted them on GitLab to share with people. So I don't know if one of the mods in the stream could maybe link these notes that I'm looking at in case anyone wants to try and follow along. Please feel free to do that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Again, maybe this will be a little bit light on the shiny stuff, but I hope that you will all enjoy this this view. Someone says the font's a little bit small. Let me see if, okay, I can zoom it in a little bit. Okay, so first thing, as I mentioned, major themes of 08 is audio system, overhead tiles. That's going to be coming all as part of this update. And by the time that 0.8 reaches a release, then all of that stuff will be included at that time. This first release, 0.80, is going to be alpha, and it's not going to have any of that yet. There's going to be a couple of alpha channel releases. This one on infrastructure, 081 next month with the audio system, 082 probably about a month after that with the overhead tiles. And then from there, it's going to be focused on not really any major features, just making sure everything's working smoothly to get it to a release version. Yeah, I think as far as timeline goes, I anticipate making the 080 alpha available next week, probably the early side of next week. Now, this is probably like immediately causing some of you to get excited. It's also probably immediately causing some of you to have like a bit of a panic attack. I mean, I can't make this happen, but my hope is that the community overall will remain quite calm about 080. And what I mean by that is it's not a version of the software that I really intend for anyone to be using to play a game, to prep their campaign. If you're thinking about doing that, you really shouldn't. I really don't recommend it. It really is a tech preview to allow the developers in the community to get their hands on like an early version of what 0.8 eventually will be. So, modules aren't going to work, game systems aren't going to work. I mean, eventually they will, but at first, these things aren't going to be in place. Like, this is really intended solely as a preview. So, I just suggest to you, while you'll have the ability to, I suggest that you don't rush to it as the daily driver that you use for Foundry. I also suggest that give the developers time. We're a long ways still from 08 being released, and that's really what their focus should be in terms of updating systems and updating modules. By the time 0.8 gets to the release channel, that's when hopefully everyone will have had time to make the updates they need to make. But in the short term, like, we've got a couple of months where this is going to be an alpha, it's going to be in beta. Please be patient with the developers. Don't make them feel pressure. They're doing this out of love and volunteer time to try and create awesome tabletop gaming stuff for everyone. So please be sensitive to your community module developers in terms of allowing them to provide a version that will work for 0.8 on their own schedule. Okay, I think those are some of the disclaimers that I wanted to mention. I will also be posting a update to the 0.7 series. It's going to be a small update, nothing major, no features, nothing, just a couple of bug fixes, as well as a couple of like changes that pave some of the foundation for the eventual migration to 0.8. So you can stay tuned for that. That's not going to be a major thing, but there will be one more update in the 07 series. Anyways, yeah. Um, okay, so I'm also going to do a couple giveaways today. I know some of you are probably looking forward to that and have your hopes set on maybe winning a Foundry license. I'll do a couple of those during the stream today. Um, I see a couple of people complimenting the music. I should definitely give credit to the musician. Um, this is Scott Buckley. He's an artist that I really love. It's just a YouTube playlist that I have going. He creates a bunch of amazing music, and it's all Creative Commons. Well, not all of it, but most of it is Creative Commons license. So it's great for things like streaming, or if you just want some stuff to listen to. Scott Buckley is really, really cool composer, and I do recommend him. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to start with kind of an overview of what's in 080. And yeah, as I said, this is going to be pretty technical, so just bear with me, and I hope you get something out of it. I think I already emphasized a bit what the alpha channel is and why it exists, but just bear in mind for sure that it is really intended for developers to get an advanced preview of the code. So, I'll actually use this as a moment to share a bit of my perspective. One of the things that has been a relatively frequent request among the developer community is like, give the devs the code, before other people get the code. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable request, and it makes a lot of sense why why that would be requested. But I also think there's a bit of a misconception, because this is what that process is. This alpha build is the process of getting people the code before anyone else should be using it. So I'm not restricting it as a private thing. Like, I'm not only making this code available to the people who have a module published on the Foundry website. If you own the software, you'll be able to get access to this. Just really recommend that you view it for what it is, which is it's intended for people who need that advanced preview to start working on their next round of changes and updates and stuff. Okay, so I hope to say this in a humble way, but this is one of really the biggest updates that has ever gone into Foundry. I've been working on it on and off since, October. It's taken a long time, and it's been slower than I expected, but that's because it's turned into something really fundamental and something that I think is going to be a really excellent foundation and platform for the software moving forward. And I hope during today's stream to convince some of you that that's the case, and that this is like a key foundation that's going to be really great for the software moving forward. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. One of the first things that's important to note is the software now requires Node 14. So if those of you know that, Foundry runs on Node.js. Either you're running Node as a service that you installed yourself, or you're using the regular application, which kind of builds Node into it. In either case, you're going to need Node 14, and that means one of two things. If you are hosting like a dedicated server, you'll need to make sure your server environment is updated to use Node 14. Or if you're using just the normal like self-hosted app, you will need to ads. I'm sorry. You will need to reinstall the 0.8.0 version of the application because you can't update from inside the app to this new version. It will require a clean reinstall. Now, don't worry too much about that because your data, all of your worlds, your actors, your compendiums, your modules, all of that stuff is stored in a separate location that doesn't get wiped away when you reinstall the software. That's kept safe. But you would need to install the new 080 software in order to have all of this ready to run. Now, I see a question from Grape Juice about like, will updating to 08 ruin worlds if you would want to go back to 079? So good news is, for the most part, the answer is no. At least as far as the core software is concerned, you'd be able to load up your world in 08 and then go back. Although, two things specifically to note, I would always recommend use a copy of your world rather than like doing that and then needing to go back. So take a backup and like try 080 with a backup copy or a separate copy. Like don't risk it, because while I say it's okay, it may not be okay. Like there may be some things that I don't know are currently breaking. And so like don't take my word for it. Protect yourself by taking a backup before you test on one of your worlds that you like really care about. But yes, it should be okay, and I'll explain a little bit of why that is later. But the short answer is because the underlying data model and the way that the data is stored in the database isn't really changing. It's more of like what is the interface on top of that data that's changing. So yeah. So about the Node 14 update, Electron, which you would get if you reinstall the software, it's going to be Electron 12 as part of the 08 series, which is currently in beta. So currently Electron 12 is in beta, but it will be released by the time that Foundry 08 is released. So Electron 12 has Chromium 89, which is a bunch of great new front-end features that you would get as part of the application. Quick note on Safari. Safari has kind of been a little bit out of commission for Foundry for a little while because they aren't yet supporting some of the public class fields and public static fields that are used in the Foundry codebase. But the good news on Safari is that the current tech preview of their next release does support those features. So Safari will be sort of back in the game as a browser that you can use with Foundry in the near future. So yeah, so that's also worth noting and is pretty exciting that Safari will be an option once again soon. Another quick note about Node 14. Node 14 should work fine for 07 as well. I'll say should. It does work fine for 07 as well. So if you want to go ahead and update to Node 14, you can go ahead and do it. You don't have to wait for 08. It is now the LTS version of Node, so you know that's safe to do. Next sort of high level comment is that I'm gonna touch down this music just a hair. Last high level comment is that there's been a lot of work going into the API documentation. So as some of you might recall, the API docs used to just have sort of just a single version. There's a new path. Oops. Don't need those brackets. There's a new path /API/alpha, which has all of the alpha 0.8.0 API docs already enabled here. So as I'm talking a little bit later today about like the abstract document, for example, you can look in the API documentation for the new updated docs for using those. Okay, so next section I want to talk about is just a general overview. Yeah, and maybe someone can put a link to that alpha API docs in chat for me. Yeah, Rebel Runner, Silicon Mac hardware should be fine. It doesn't really affect you that much. And yeah. Um, Lupus Smalis says something about like the API docs should definitely use more examples for newer devs. Agree with you there. That's something that has been worked on, and as you see, like for example, like this sort of standard like create a new document method, it now has like some examples in it about you know example usages of like how to create a new document or a compendium item or an owned item document. Trying to incorporate these like usage examples into a lot of like important methods in the API is something that's been a real effort to do as part of '08. So about breaking changes, there are a number of them in 080. And what I mean by a breaking change is I mean that something in the software that no longer works the same way that it did previously. In particular, it no longer works in the same way it did previously in a way that kind of requires some downstream changes. So a question you might be asking is like, why break anything? Why not just keep everything working? That would be ideal, and I agree with that. Although my perspective here that I want to share is that while I think Foundry's in a great place, I think it can be much better still. And so, in order to accomplish that and to empower the next kind of tier of potential that the software has, I needed to make some underlying design changes to allow that to be a better foundation. So the good news is that most of the breaking changes do not break immediately. Rather, they are things that will display a warning message if you continue to do things the old way. And those warning messages will prompt you to change your approach to use the new path. So these are like deprecation pathways, and those are going to be kept around for a full version cycle. So until 0.9, you'd be able to continue doing stuff the old way, and then at 0.9 you would no longer be able to do stuff the old way. So you'll have the full 0.8 version cycle to adapt to some of these changes that are necessary. Um, and then so that's most of the breaking changes. Most of them are gentle in that they'll just nudge you to adapt and to change your approach. Some of them are currently unknown. What I mean by that is I'm sure there are some things that will break, especially for the huge variety of systems and modules and what have you. There's some things that won't work or will break, and I didn't necessarily intend them. I didn't know that they were going to break. So this is one of the important reasons why I really hope that the developer community will take a look at 080 and will provide me with quality testing feedback. There's going to be some things that will break right away that I hadn't intended for them to break. So what I'm going to do with that is I want to collect all of that feedback, and I'm going to use 0.081 to round off and smooth off the rough edges of things that broke in 080 that I didn't intend for them to break. So the goal will be to add back in 081 sort of migration deprecation pathways in places where something broke right away and I hadn't intended it to. Lastly, there really are going to be some things that do break right away, and there's no way around it. And those are some of the breaking changes that are unfortunately unavoidable. I hope they're not going to impact a huge number of people, but they will impact some modules and developers particularly. So I'm going to try and cover those as clearly as I can. And yeah, we'll hopefully get through this together, and I'll field your compliments as well as your hate mail on what has happened as a result of this. Diminor asks, when should we update to 080? Diminor, I would advise, unless you have a specific reason to want to participate in the testing process, I would advise waiting until it is a stable release. Um, so that would be my suggestion. Um, I would suggest waiting until like 085 or possibly 086, whatever the first stable release is. Um, Thank you all for your Prime subs, by the way. That's really generous of you. I don't really give you much in exchange for your subscription, which I really should do a better job with, but just know how much I appreciate it. It's very generous and very kind of you to those of you who are subbing. I do really appreciate your donation there. That's very thoughtful. Um, there's like a couple of emotes, but I should up my game there. I say that every stream, and it's just I'm too busy coding. I don't have the time to pimp my Twitch channel as well as I would like. Um, all right. So I'm gonna talk now about probably the most significant feature in 080. Um, So this is the Commons module, and it is the sort of prerequisite of the Common Document model, which sounds super boring, very dry. So I guess I'll put you all to sleep, but I'm just going to dig into it and bear with me. So moving to Node 14, it allows for the software to use ES modules server side instead of as an alternative to the sort of old school Node modules that are common JS. So this is kind of like a big technical change for Node as an ecosystem, where ES modules is a particular way of packaging code and importing and exporting components of that package to share it with other software in your environment. And ES modules is something that's kind of a new standard for how to vend and package JavaScript code that is used on the client side already, but it wasn't able to be used on the server side, at least not without a build step to like rewrite it into a different format. So now that is possible under Node 14, and that's like a big sort of missing link here, which is fundamental to a lot of what I'm doing in this update. So because there can now be ES modules that work for both the client and the server side of the code, that means there can be a module that is an ES module that can be used by both the client and the server. Exact same code can be used in both environments. And so previously, the Foundry code was kind of organized where there's like a client directory with lots of JavaScript in it, and there's a server directory with lots of JavaScript in it. And those are related code bases in that they both have to deal with like making Foundry VTT work, but they were unrelated in that they kind of didn't actually interact at all. So now, with the addition of a common module, both the server and the client are going to be running the exact same code for a number of really important core functions. And that does a ton of really useful things. It enables, for example, constant definitions that are guaranteed to be exactly the same on the server and on the client. Helper methods that are guaranteed to behave exactly the same way on the server and the client. Data schema definitions that are guaranteed to be the same data schema on both, and document class definitions that provide base classes for each of the document types and their behaviors. So probably this doesn't make a lot of sense yet, but I'm hoping it will as I continue on. So, like, what's the sort of so what about this? One of the big so whats of this is that the way a document instance is constructed becomes identical for both the client and the server. And what do I mean by document instance? I mean like an actor or an item or a scene. When you think about the data structure of one of those things, this allows the server and the client to have exactly the same software structure in terms of what that thing is and what it does and what its data looks like. And so it enables those objects to be handled and transferred in a very symmetric way. that allows a lot of things that, man, YouTube is really killing it with the ads today. Didn't used to have so many. I guess maybe I disabled my ad block. That's probably why. Let's try that. Um, so I just got distracted by that. What was I saying? So you've got a document on both the server and the client side that looks and feels and operates the same way, which is really cool in that it allows a lot of things which previously required server-side handling and input to instead happen on the client side without any network traffic involved. So for example, when you're creating a new document or updating an existing document, all the data validation of like is the document schema satisfied and valid, all of that can now happen on the client side, which allows you to have a much faster kind of feedback loop of something went wrong here. Now don't anyone panic. Validation is still occurring on the server side, so I'm not foregoing that, but validation can happen on the client side before any work is dispatched to the server, and that enables you to save a lot of network traffic potentially when you're doing things like creating temporary documents or validating changes to a document in your world. So I've been saying a lot of things about documents, and I want to talk a little bit more specifically about what that means. So the most important concept in the new common module is the addition of this document class. And you can find that in the API documentation under interfaces document or under the namespaces abstract. The sort of abstract interfaces that I'm going to be talking about here are documented here. So I'm talking about this document as well as the accompanying document data. So previously, the Foundry codebase used a terminology that referred to certain pieces of data as an entity, and where an entity was kind of referencing a certain object of data that was saved directly to a corresponding database file in your world. Now, the software also used the terminology of an embedded entity, which would be a type of document that was kind of stored within a parent, but not saved directly as kind of a primary first-class document. Now, these concepts, they still have value, and a lot of the things that I mean here, that I'm talking about here, still apply, but the implementation has been almost completely reworked to be I guess more flexible, more robust, and more consistently applied everywhere. So the key thing that is important to realize is that now every primary piece of data is a document, and all documents function in the same way in terms of implementing the same underlying abstraction. So that's really important because it means that lots of things that previously had their own sort of idiosyncratic workflows now kind of all get collapsed down to using the same workflows. An example of that would be previously like an active effect. It was a type of embedded entity within an actor or within an item. And when you have a class that represents an active effect, it was kind of its own standalone thing. It had its own methods, it has its own workflows associated with it. Now an active effect is just a type of document, and all documents work the same way. So the same way you would update an actor or an item is the same way you would update an active effect in terms of using the API. So the concepts of an entity is kind of being phased out, and you'll see that throughout the software, places where I was previously using that term entity, I've kind of reframed or renamed those to use the word document instead. And the places where I've previously used the term embedded entity, those are kind of changed to use the terminology of document as well, however, with the adjective of embedded. So it's sort of a lowercase e embedded document, where you can have other adjectives that also apply to documents. For example, a compendium document or a canvas document, where they're documents of a particular type. But they all share the same underlying structure and the same contracts and abstraction in terms of how they behave. So we're gonna just keep doubling down on the nerdiness. I saw a question about giveaways. I'm gonna get through this section and then I'm gonna do the first license giveaway. So let me pull up this diagram maybe as like a full screen thing real quick. So I'm calling this symmetric design, which is symmetric in that the document works the same way on both the server side as well as the client side. So in the Commons module, what you have here is you have a couple of underlying abstractions that are common to both the client and to the server. So let me talk about some of those abstractions. So one of them is, I guess I need to maybe have on two screens. So here on the left in my IDE, I have the Commons module. So for example, you have the document data, which is one of the fundamental abstractions that's in the new Commons module. Document data defines the data schema for every type of document in Foundry VTT. So let me show you an example of what that looks like. So here is, for example, combatant data, which is the data schema for a combatant, which is a type of document within the combat document. So a combat is comprised of many combatants. And you would see, for example, in the API documentation that combatant data is now fully documented. So you can see as a developer exactly what the fields, the attributes of a combatant can be by looking in the API documentation to see exactly what a combatant contains. Now, that is the, let me go back to my diagram here. I guess I should open it in Chrome maybe. Back to my diagram here. So that's the document data. Now there's the document class itself, which contains a couple of things. So the document contains the document data schema, as well as some other things like references to its context. Yeah, if you had a nickel for every time I said document during this stream, everyone would be like hauling it in. I know, like, there's no way to go through this without being like super pedantic and redundant. So like, I don't know. This is like the kind of thing that's really hard to stream, but you know, you're all just awesome for sticking with me. I don't know why you do it, but yeah. White Spine, I'll try and take that question in a minute. But yeah, so the document class itself is kind of at the center in that it contains the data schema for the document. It also contains a certain backend which defines how the database is operated. So while this behavior is all common, you obviously need different behaviors on the client side and the server side for how the database gets interacted with. So there's a database backend which gets extended on both sides as well. So let me show you an example of like what this actually looks like. Let's look at some of these documents. So I'll go to I was using combatant as an example. So the base combatant class, which is in the Commons module, the base combatant, and it's also in the API documentation, although it's like pretty simple, so there's not much to it. The base combatant, its schema is the combatant data. It has some other metadata that helps know what its context is, what permissions are required in order to make modifications to a combatant, things like this. And that's really all there is to it. And this base combatant is going to be extended on both the server side and the client side with any specific behaviors that are needed in one particular context, but not the other. So you've got the combatant data, you've got the combatant document, and that's what's in the commons module. Now, what happens when we're no longer in the commons module, but we're actually, say, like on the client side? I'm going to scroll in my document down to this sort of bottom corner of it, where in the client side module, you are extending these documents from the commons module to use them in the particular context that you need. So, for example, the final combatant document that you would be using when you are writing macros or programming a system or building a module is going to be this combatant, which is a client-side document that extends the base combatant. And this general design allows for everything to behave symmetrically on both the server side and the client side. So this is the design, that Foundry is using, and you can find this in the notes on GitLab that was linked earlier, as well as in the issue that is associated specifically with this design proposal. Now, probably this hasn't made a lot of sense to everybody yet, so I think what would be useful maybe at this point is to show a practical example. So I'm going to pull up my console here, and I think I can make it enlarge it. I always have to watch out for this because my face is at the bottom left. So let me raise this up a little bit. So let's suppose I have an actor. I'll do A equals game actors get name. We'll use this Dragonborn cleric as our example actor, maybe. So Acra Dragonborn cleric. So my actor document here is the actor 5e, that is the extended class defined in the 5e game system. And if we look at what's in this actor, it has a bunch of stuff, bunch of methods, a bunch of properties, things that you can do with it. So let's start by looking at the data. So a.data. Now, if you recall, those of you who are familiar with the API, when you currently in Foundry look at the data object inside an entity or an embedded entity, it's just a simple object. It's just a plain JavaScript object. Now, this is a major change in that inside every document instance is a instance of that data schema. So a.data in this case, is the actor data instance for this particular actor. So that adds a whole new layer of things that you can do. For example, I can validate that the data for this actor is valid, or I could pass additional new changes to validate that the data is valid. There's all kinds of other stuff you can do with the actor data. You can inspect what its schema is in the absence of the actual content. So there's all kinds of you have access to the validation functions that are used for each attribute, things like this. There's a ton that you can do with this, and so having access to the actual underlying data object rather than just a plain JavaScript object is something that's really a big change. But it's also a transparent change, because when you do something like a.data.image, it's still going to work the same way. It still functions the same way as your plain object did before. It's just enhanced with all of this extra functionality. So let's think about maybe something else like a let's see here. I forgot I wasn't actually connected to that session. That's why. Oh, debugging, that's not what we want to do. Get that out of here. So let's maybe get an actor out of a compendium pack. So pack equals game packs get, we'll look at the heroes pack. I'll just populate the pack with all of the documents it contains. The Compendium APIs are largely revamped as well. You'll notice that these Compendium packs provide interactable collections. The contents of them is cached. I'll get to that later. But suppose we'll get something out of the Compendium pack. We'll get Perrin, the halfling monk. Oh, didn't like that. Let's see, did I misspell it? Perrin, halfling monk. Oh, I missed a parentheses. Obviously, like when you're getting something by name, typing the name exactly correctly does matter. So again, this actor in the Compendium is exactly the same as an actor in your world. It also has a data schema. It does, however, belong to the pack as a collection, and it has, some metadata. But overall, like, you can do all of the same things with this document inside your compendium that you can within your world. And I'm going to get to that later, but the process of working with compendium packs is vastly improved in 0.8.0, and so I think many of you, not just developers but also users, are going to really appreciate that and enjoy it. So hopefully that's like a little example of some of like what I'm talking about here. Obviously, like when you're on the client side, you're working with the client database backend, which defines how everything transacts. I'm not going to spend too much time going in depth into that, because I think this is already really dry material, and so I'm gonna like kind of maybe just sort of allude to the fact that it's a lot easier and a lot better to work with, and then leave it up to all of you to experience it firsthand once you get your hands on 0.8.0, and hopefully eventually agree with me that, oh yeah, this is way better. Okay, moving on. I'm going to get to the end of this section, and then I'm going to do that first license key giveaway. So a couple more bullet points to go. So every primary data concept now has a class associated with it. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but this is important to double down on. So all of these, and this is just in the console, all of these document types now have canonical class definitions. So what do I mean by that? I mean that something like a playlist sound within a playlist is its own class. So if I were to say get game playlists, I'll just get one of them. This was my sewer playlist. The sounds in this sewer playlist, there's only one, but the sound in this sewer playlist is an instance of playlist sound. So every embedded, lowercase e, embedded document is now its own class instance. And they all have their own APIs that you can work with. So for example, like this, I want to get this one particular sound. I can just get that one sound and it just says sewer or whatever. But if I wanted to play this sound using the API, I can make updates directly to the sound. I can set it to play, or I can do like methods like play sound that can now transact a certain sound. And the sound object itself has new methods where there wasn't ever any object before to do with it. So like, for example, like s.play, over here on my sewer playlist, if I call like s play, now you can see that my sewer sound is playing. I don't know if you can quite hear it on the stream. There it is. I can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it. But that means that lots of things that previously, and I'll stop it playing. There you see it stopped playing. Lots of things that previously didn't have underlying API support now have API support. So playlist sounds, combatants, active effects, items. I mean, some of them already did have it, but results within a role table, for example. So like if I look at like a... Sorry, I keep putting that under my webcam. Suppose I get like a role table here. The table results, these 7 results, I guess none of them have text, but yeah, these 7 results, they all have their own result data associated with them. They all have their own class instances associated with them. So all of these things can be like interacted with in a very symmetric and transparent way. That the power of the API has like magnified several fold here. Whenever you're working with something that didn't previously have like a dedicated class associated with it. So what does that mean in terms of like things you might be doing in the API with some of this stuff? That means that things like hooks and callback functions for what used to be previously like an embedded entity, they now transact document instances instead of instead of just an object. So for example here, my example is like pre-update playlist sound. If you want to take some action before a sound starts playing in a playlist, previously in this hook you were going to get just like a blob of data. Now in this hook what you're going to get, and I'll just turn this hook on and show you. Let me like console log. I'll just log the sound. So I've just attached a hook to like pre-update playlist sound. So now what happens if I go over here in the UI and I'm going to, you know, make my sewer sound play again, is I see that my hook just spat out some data on its listener. And, oh, I wonder if that's a bug. Oh, I got the order I got the order of my arguments wrong in the hook. Let me, even I don't use my my API correctly sometimes. So the arguments of a hook here, when it is embedded, we're going to get the parent document, then we're going to get the sound. So let me try that. Let's see. No? Huh, interesting. What did I do? Well, alpha, I guess. Shrug. Let me see. No? Oh, sounds. Yeah, okay. It's just like an ongoing user error every time, I guess. Yeah, it's weird that it's putting the playlist in here. I'm just gonna take a second and see what's spitting out of this hook. It's giving me oh, it gives me, okay, it's giving me the parent and, oh, okay. I know why I did this. Everything's okay. I did this so that the hook signature wasn't going to change. So this is like a backwards compatibility thing, because in 07, the embedded entity hooks, they give you the arguments that you get from them. It's like the parent, the child, the change, the options. So I kept the hooks the same so that anyone who's currently using one of these hooks, they like wouldn't be affected by this change. If I was redesigning the hook signature for 080, it would look like this. Like, you don't need the parent anymore because the sound itself contains a reference to the parent, so you don't need the parent like you used to. But in order to keep the hook signatures from breaking, I did set it up like this. So I like had this like heart in mouth moment of like, oh, you know, live demo, of course it's gonna like go totally wrong. But no, everything is actually working correctly. I just user error. So the playlist sounds, they get transacted the playlist sound instance that you could see like its parent is the playlist. So you no longer need this reference to the playlist, but backwards compatibility, so it stays in there. Flo asks, will you still be able to modify the data in the pre-update hooks? Yes, you will still be able to modify data in the pre-update hooks, so you can change what data is going to be altered. So you notice in this previous one that I showed as an example, you could modify the data object. Okay, moving right along. The new design of the document data class gives you all of this stuff for data validation, which differentiates the underlying source data, which is the exact content that is stored in the database, from the realized, like derived, transformed data. after transformations have been applied. So for example, suppose we're thinking about this actor, this Akra, the Dragonborn cleric here. Suppose we're thinking about this actor. If we were to have active effects, for example, on the actor, I don't have any right now, the actor's data has this differentiation between the base data, the source data, which is the unmodified data for the actor, versus the transformed and altered and derived data that is prepared whenever the actor's attributes are computed. So for example, what do I mean by that? I mean, if you look at the actor's abilities, like say well, Dex is boring because he's got no mod. Wisdom. The wisdom for this actor has a modifier. It has a save bonus. It has check bonuses, stuff like this. However, if you think about like what is the actual underlying source data, well, actually, this is because it's a legacy actor, so the stuff was still in there. But if I were to create a new actor, some of that stuff would be not in the source data. That's something that needs a little bit of a D&D 5e migration in order to like clean it. So that's actually not done. But what I can do is I can create a new actor. So I'll just like create test. So let's give this person, say, like 16 constitution. So in the source data, we see only that the actor has 16 constitution as their value, and they're not proficient in constitution. But in their derived data, we get much more, because that work happens during data derivation. The value is expanded out to a modifier, a save bonus, a DC whenever this ability score is used. The underlying data structure expands out, but the source data, which is what's actually stored in the database itself, is more minimal. And so this differentiates within, that's one of the things that having the data as its own actual class instance allows to do. Is to maintain that separation for the purposes of validation, differencing, updates, stuff like that. Fry Guy asks, is data underscore source the same as underscore data previously? Yes. Well, basically, it serves the same purpose. It is an object of the underlying source data that the document contains. Yes. All right. So significant improvements to initial data validation and cleaning does a way better job of ensuring that documents all have standardized and clean data schema. This is something that's like really big, and it's something that can now happen on both the client side as well as the server side. So for example, suppose I were to create a new actor programmatically using the API only. So suppose I go here and I'm going to do A equals new actor name Andrew, type character. Well, actually, let me first show you what happens if I omit type. So I try and create a new actor. This validation error that the required type field, let me raise this up. I see some people say can't see it. The required type field is not present in the actor data. This validation message was generated client side. So there was no effort to dispatch this data request to the server in order to determine that like you can't construct an actor this way. All of this validation happened on the client side and immediately gave you instantaneous feedback that like you need a type. So suppose I give it a type. Now I've got a valid actor instance that I've created, and more specifically, like this would never have been the case in '07. So like if you try these same things in '07, it's not going to work for you. Um, if you look inside the actor data, you'll notice that like the whole data model is already populated. Like we have 10 strength and we're not proficient. The entire actor data has been expanded and populated with the proper defaults. It's been sanitized, it's been cleaned, so you have this like pristine, clean object that like if we were to export it to JSON, we see we've got the entire actor data at our fingertips, and that all happened client-side. There was no need to send the data off to the server and wait for it to come back with like this is your actor. You can just create an ephemeral actor instance directly in memory, and you have the entire data object at your fingertips. All right, one last thing here, and then I'm going to take a break and do a giveaway. But all right, White Spine, let me answer your question because you have asked a couple of times. Does this allow for more complex schema types like arrays of objects? I'm not sure exactly how to interpret your question, but I'm going to assume that you are asking about in the system data template, can you define like an object in an array in the system data that contains an array of objects? You can do that, although it doesn't give you any special gravy to make that work. You still have to update the array. If you do that, then the array is itself the value of that key. So when you update the key, you have to pass the new array. That's probably not the answer you were hoping for. However, that is the answer. That is the factual answer. So yeah, you can definitely have an array of objects in your template, but when you update that array, you need to provide the new array. Okay, document subclasses now have protected internal methods, which are called before hooks, and they provide hook-like functionality built directly into the class definition. So, what does this mean? It means if you own a certain class, so for example, suppose we have actor implementation. So the actor implementation that's being used is the actor 5e. You'll notice that the actor implementation has now like a pre-create method in the class itself. So this is something like take some actions at the instance level before this instance is created. This is the kind of thing that previously only like hooks would do, but it was weird because like a hook could do it, but the class itself couldn't take actions before key steps of their own workflow. And so this was like a big gap. And so now every document type can define these like pre or post operation methods, which are like, I hesitate to use the word callbacks, but they basically allow you to run certain steps, perform certain steps before a modification happens to documents of that type. So for example, like what am I doing here in 5e? Well, if we're creating a character, I'm going to go ahead and assign them that they have vision and that they're friendly and that they should be linked to their parent actor by default. So some of this stuff, it just becomes way easier to do it with these new, pre-create, on-create, pre-update, on-update, pre-delete, on-delete methods. Okay, I'm going to take a couple questions, and I'm going to do a license key giveaway. So what you'll need to do, if you have a question, go ahead and pop it in chat, and you can please preface your question with like all caps question, and I'll try and take some of those when I get back. And there's more to go into. I'm just going to take a break for some questions, and I'm going to get a refill on my glass of water, and I'm going to do a license key giveaway. So to participate in the giveaway, I'm sure that's what matters to a lot of you. To participate in the giveaway, all you have to do is be here in Twitch chat, and you have to be logged in. So if you're here, if you're logged in, I'm going to grab all your usernames and put them into a roll table to do the drawing. So just be here, be logged into Twitch, and by doing that, you are automatically entered. And so I will do that drawing in just a minute when I get back from this short break. All right, I'm back. Short break is complete. Okay, let me do the drawing first, and then I'm going to scroll up and take some questions. So, I like the way I do these drawings. I like the way we do the giveaways here. For those of you who may not have seen one of these streams before, what I'm going to do is I took everybody from Twitch chat, and I wrote a little macro here. So I'm using the Foundry API. I have all of the viewers from Twitch chat, and I'm just going to use this command to create myself a roll table, which I just did just there. So 590 of you. That is very impressive. Thank you all for being here and being logged in. I now have a roll table for the giveaway, and yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and roll from this thing, and I'm going to pick 2 winners from this drawing, and I may, depending on how I feel, do some more giveaways later in the stream. All right, here we go. Everyone, good luck. Drum roll, please. If you are chosen, I will look for you in chat to please accept your prize, or you may pass. And we are off. All right, making it down to B, C. Oh, keep going. Keep it going. Oh. All right, we got Kai Hillik. Kaihlik, number 272, Kai Hillik. You, if you choose to accept, are the winner. I'm going to scroll up for a second, and I'll come back and confirm whether they accepted their winnings or not. But I'm going to scroll up and take a question. All right. I don't know if I went to the beginning of the questions or not. No, let me go a little bit more. Will token drag animation eventually become a toggle option? Isn't it? Is it not? I don't know. I thought it was. I think it's client-side already, but I don't know. I'd have to double-check on that. If it's not client-side, I think that's something I could definitely consider switching to a client-side setting. question, how am I doing? I'm doing great. It's been really chaotic couple of months, but overall I'm doing really well, and just, you know, love getting a chance to work on Foundry as like my thing and interact with all of you, and it's just great. You know, I'm very lucky. Um, Rico asks, will some modules no longer work, or as well systems? Probably at first some will no longer work. My hope is that over the course of like 0.8, the alpha and beta testing, those will be, you know, have a chance to get to the point where they're working. Although I wouldn't expect them to be working right away. There's going to be some like polishing up that will be needed. Danger Noodle asks if you have a reference to an embedded document that you've changed and the parent document that you've also changed. When you update the parent document, will that automatically update the embedded document? You can do it together. So that's a new feature that I'm probably not going to get into here, but one of the cool things you can do in 080 is you can update the parent as well as a set of children all in a single operation. So I use this, for example, with like playlists where I need to like mark certain sounds within the playlist as playing, and then also mark the parent playlist itself as playing. There's a way in 080 to do that all in just a single operation where you can update embedded documents as well as the parent document in a single database operation. Is there content from Kobold Press coming to Foundry VTT? I hope so, Damien. I love Kobold Press. I've gotten in touch with them, and they're interested, but I can't commit them to anything. And we are not yet to the point where we have a concrete plan to move forward. It is something that I very much hope will be possible. Have I thought about building in Dice So Nice? I have. Although I'm very happy at the moment for Dice So Nice to be just a really fantastic module. I think it's really an exceptional module. The authors have done a tremendous job with it, and while 3D dice, it's beautiful. It's like the quality is superb, and it is something that most people view as a staple of their Foundry environment. It is something that I'm happy for it to remain a add-on for the time being. I think, you know, who knows what the future holds, but I've got a lot of things I want to work on developing, and I'm happy to have the team that's working on DSN be as involved in creating an awesome module as they are, and I'm happy for them to just kind of keep grooving on that for the time being. Duke Basalt asks, can you explain the workflow for creating a new document type, such as extending active effects? So you can extend a document type with your own subclass definition. You cannot create an entirely new document type. So you can't create a document type called like a bird, and then you're going to have like a collection of birds in your scene. That's cool, I guess, but you would have to use one of the existing you'd have to use one of the existing types, like a token or a tile or something, if you want to do that. So you can't define entirely new documents, but you can extend the existing document types, and I will cover that in the second half of the stream. Will Foundry Hub become the new place to receive support? Well, okay, I didn't read your entire question yet, Isabella, but let me just make sure everyone is aware. Foundry Hub is a very cool new website, just launched yesterday. It's a community project. So it's created by and operated by some members of the community as a passion project. I don't know what Foundry Hub will become in terms of like the place to, you know, X. I think it will become the place to do a number of things. I think it looks like a really great project, and it seems really awesome, and I encourage everyone to check it out. But it's only been online for one day, so I don't know what it will become the place to do. But I think that's largely up to the community. You know, it's a community project. It's a community site. It'll be up to all of you to see how you use it, and what, you know, what that leads, how that leads for the Foundry Hub site to evolve. Jern asks, what do all these changes actually mean for a normal user? So if I were to try and paraphrase that, Jern, I would say it means you'll want to be very careful about when you update to 0.8 point anything. I strongly recommend everyone wait until there's a stable release version of it, which won't be for a while. So in that sense, it doesn't mean anything for you now or for the next couple months probably. But when the time comes, it means that you'll want to, for sure, make a backup of your data. For sure, you'll want to reinstall the software so you have the new Node version, the new Electron version. And then you'll want to just be cautious when you start Foundry 0.8 for the first time. You'll want to disable your modules and just launch it clean for the first time, and then enable modules that you want, probably. You won't have to do that, but you should. Yeah, other than that, I think it doesn't mean a lot for you as a normal user, although some of the stuff does. There's stuff that I'm going to talk about after this sort of midstream break that does affect end users a bit more. So I don't know if you have to go or if you can see the VOD or something, but stay tuned and I'm going to cover some of that stuff. Question, how many hours a day do I work on Foundry? It varies. If I'm in a development groove, I'll probably work for like maybe 10, 11 hours a day. But I also have a life, so some days I'll work less. Let's see. One more question, and I'm going to scroll up to see what happened with my giveaway and whether Kailik accepted or not. What has been the most difficult step of developing Foundry up to this point? Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think there's been so many difficult steps. You know, what has been the most difficult step? I think probably, and this is a little bit personal, and I don't want to get into it too much. So forgive me if this answer is like a little bit on the light side, but I do want to answer you honestly. I think the most difficult step was deciding to work on this full time, because you know that there's no guarantees about how anything's going to go, and you know my former employer was really great, and so I really agonized over that decision a lot. Okay, let me skip ahead and see if we have an accept on the winner. Scrolling. Did I miss it? Maybe I missed it. Draw again, no winner, Nath says. Okay, here we go again. Who's it gonna be? I probably shouldn't have taken so long answering questions, because now people who are on this list have probably like left, and they won't be here to win. Oh, it's going all the way to M. N. Is it gonna loop? Surely not. Surely not. Oh my. Oh, Winter Monk. Winter Monk, number 575. Winter Monk, if you are here, you are the winner of a Foundry Virtual Tabletop license. Oh god, they accepted. RIP. Okay, well, I said I was going to give away two. Let's see if Winter Monk accepts. Well, congratulations, Kyle. Sorry I didn't see your name at first. I said I was going to give away two, so this can be the second one. We'll see if Winter Monk's here. Waiting. Looking for Winter Monk. Gonna be Spring Monk at this rate. Top comment. Alright, I'm gonna give him about 5 more seconds. Here we go. Alright, I'm rolling again. Too late. That's what you get when you roll a 1 on your initiative. Cry over Doge. Number 96, Cry over Doge. All right, let me see if I can take a question for a second. One question. Any chance of a method that would allow us to update multiple documents and of multiple types in a single transaction? Lord Zeal. Well, kind of. So in your example that you've given, like such as multiple tokens and multiple tiles at once, if they're all within the same scene, you can do that. You'll be able to do that. So you can update tokens and tiles within a certain scene all at one shot. Now, if they're in different scenes or they're different like top level documents, then no, there's not a way to do like update an actor and a combat encounter in the same transaction at the moment. That may be something I can add in the future, but not yet. All right, did we get a cry over Doge? Cry over Doge? I see someone that said he accepted, or she accepted. Cry over Doge? Oh, I see a thumbs up from Cry over Doge. Congratulations to you. You and Kai Hillick are winners of Foundry Virtual Tabletop licenses. What you'll need to do is just please send me a message on Twitch. Just DM me, and please, if you can, go to the Foundry website and create a user account, and just DM me with your username that you registered on the Foundry website if you don't already have one. All right, well, better luck next time to the non-winners. I'll probably give away another license or two towards the end of the stream in case anyone wants to stick with me through this like very boring nerdy talk. But yeah, all right. Saint Willem. I don't know how to say your name aloud, Stwillum, but I'm going to say Saint Willem. What will be added to the config stuff now that everything's a document? Good question. I will cover that in just a moment. Okay, so next up, Compendium Improvements. I already commented on this a little bit, but the standardization of the document types also means a lot of simplification for how compendium packs work. So previously, compendium packs were kind of an extension that was built on top of and sort of built around specific types of documents, and that extension on top of those documents kind of allowed them to be stored externally in these compendium files. Now, because of the overhaul to the document structure, now the way that it works is that each document may belong to a compendium pack, and that workflow, that relationship, is built directly into the document model. So this allows for documents inside compendium packs to function basically in an almost identical way as documents within your world. So you know, I mentioned I don't have a lot of like, ooh, shiny things for users to appreciate in this stream, although I do have a couple. So one thing, for example, that I'll show is, and hopefully this demo works. So let's take a look at the monsters SRD for 5e. So suppose we've got a bandit here. My bandit sheet in this compendium currently is not editable. Because the compendium is locked. But if I go over here and unlock the compendium pack, suddenly my bandit sheet is editable. Now this is something that wouldn't have happened in 07. Although you can unlock compendiums for editing, they wouldn't automatically unlock like right before your eyes like this. You'd have to kind of close it and reopen it, and then get in. You'd have to pull it open in order to edit. So now I can edit this. I can make it a bandits plural or bandito, and I can make these changes. But editing the compendium document itself is only moderately impressive. What is going to make more of you happy is that now I can edit and change the items that the document within the compendium has. So I can, instead of a scimitar, I can make it a katana. And now my bandits have katanas. I can add and remove weapons to the document directly inside the compendium. I can add active effects to I can add active effects to the bandit inside the compendium. So all of the editing that you might need to do for a content in your compendium packs, you can now do inside the compendium pack if you want to. Anything that you would need to do, you can now do it directly inside the compendium pack. Now I better be careful to undo this and discard my changes, otherwise our 5e SRD bandit is going to be a bandito instead. But yeah, I don't know. I'll just discard my changes later. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so hopefully that's something, any of you who work with compendium packs, I think you're going to really appreciate that change. And that was one that, like, the output of it, it looks super simple. It just kind of, it works and you just do it and it works. But like the architecture needed under the hood to make that happen was not as straightforward. So there was like very hard, challenging technical problems that needed to be solved in order for compendium packs to work this way. Another thing I want to showcase about, here's a good example of some of the like deprecation warnings that you'll see as a developer in 0.8.0. So like here's one. You are referencing actor delete owned item, which is deprecated in favor of item delete, or actor delete embedded documents. Support will be removed in 0.9.0. So like this worked when I was deleting those documents, it worked. And the reason, this warning's being shown is because in the 5e system, I'm using this like call here, which is no longer the canonical way to, to do this. So like it still works, but it's going to yell at you and suggest that you, switch to do the new thing instead. All right, so another thing is compendium packs are now automatically indexed as part of the initial connection process. At least this is the proposal. It adds a little bit more overhead to the initial connection traffic, and so for people who are using a lot of modules, I'm going to be looking for feedback on whether this is a good thing or not. I think it's going to be okay because the index itself is really small data. It's like much smaller than an image, for example. So I'm not too worried about it, but this is one where like I'm going to be paying attention to the feedback here. What do I mean by this? So for example, the monsters compendium pack. I just refreshed my client, by the way, so that's important. I just did like a hard refresh. So after a hard refresh, suppose I go to look at like monsters. I've already got the index of this compendium pack. I already know the names and images and everything of what's included in the pack. I've already got the full index. So that is it's a meaningful change. I'm gonna take a look and see how it goes. Now the other thing that's important is that the actual documents in the compendium are cached now once you access them for at least a brief amount of time. So if you're frequently working in a certain compendium pack, you're going to experience much better performance of like making edits and changes and dragging items to and from. So suppose, for example, I get one of the items off of this index. I'm just going to grab the first one, the gargoyle, for example. Suppose I actually load the full document for this gargoyle from the pack. I can do that as like await pack get document, and I'll just provide it the ID. So now I have the gargoyle, the full document. This full document of the gargoyle that I just retrieved from the server is now cached. As you can see, it's like the pack has like one thing in it. Now the pack could contain everything that's in the index, so there's 325 actors that the pack could contain, but it currently contains the one gargoyle because you've loaded it, you've pulled it locally, and it's going to stay cached for a brief amount of time before it like disappears and releases that memory. So you're not going to hold all of the compendium content in memory all the time, but you'll hold it for a little while as long as you're working with these actors, and that's going to speed up a lot of the things that you're doing when you're working with compendium packs. Yes. Okay. Just seeing if there's any key questions. Can the index be extended to index additional fields like CR and 5e? Not yet, although that is an issue that is still in the milestone that I'm going to try and accommodate to support the option of additional compendium index fields. It's a delicate balance because it won't scale super well if lots of modules, like, say, extend that, and then soon you're sort of like loading the entire actor document, and it's like you have to hold the entire data as your compendium. But we'll see. Like, allowing a way to request additional fields as part of the index is something that is hopefully going to be enabled as part of 08X, but it's not enabled yet. Hey, Riptide, thank you for saying that. I appreciate your note. I appreciate that. Vector asks, can we expect to see quicker load times on the client side with the 08 changes? It's going to be a bit of both. So there's some performance wins and there's some performance losses a little bit. There's like some more HTTP requests that have to happen for each load, so that's kind of a slowdown, a little slowdown. And then also loading all the compendium indexes, like, that's also a little slowdown. But to counteract and probably surmount that, the Foundry server is now running HTTP2. If and only if you are using a SSL certificate. So that would more than cancel out the slowdown if you're self-hosting with an SSL cert. But anyways, I don't think it's going to be much slower, but Vector, it could be a little bit slower. It could be a little slower. Grape Juice asks, Compendium shortcomings was not being able to use links between objects, i.e. scene containing tokens linked to actors. That is something that is not addressed by this particular set of changes, but it is something that this particular set of changes will allow for addressing. So some more work is needed there, but the vision is to provide a more robust compendium import experience that if there are interlinked content within the compendium pack, importing that content would optionally import the kind of closure of that content set, where, like, you might import a scene and import the actors for the scene and kind of reconstruct the correct cross links. Now, like, one thing that basically, like, the foundation for that is going to be that, you know, for example, suppose I import the animated armor. If I look at the actor that I just imported, oh, I didn't enable it yet. I'm sorry. That change isn't pushed yet. So I was, like, showing you something that isn't actually pushed yet. But what will happen is that the source ID, the compendium identifier for the animated armor, when you import it to your world, it's going to maintain that reference back to the compendium. So, like, that, the fact that it maintains that referential ID would allow you to, when you bulk import a lot of stuff, easily recompile, like, remap all of the relationships that you need to. Anyways, like, these questions that you're asking, a couple of questions about, like, compendium import, those are still parts of, like, the 0.8 vision that are not yet quite done. Origin Progenitor asks, is there going to be a better way to make larger maps? It's kind of hard using small images. I'm a little surprised to hear that feedback, because I think Foundry supports, like, larger maps than pretty much anything else does. But yeah, I mean, you're going to be constrained by the maximum texture size that your GPU can support. If you know, have a better GPU, then your maximum texture size will be larger. But yeah, I think that is going to be a little bit of a limitation, at least for the time being. You can obviously carve a map up into multiple tiles, each of which are less than the max texture size, but there are some challenges with how to store some related textures in that world. So yeah, at the moment for most like current gen GPUs, your maximum texture size is going to be about 16,000 pixels, which I don't currently see the size of battle maps as being like a constraining feature of Foundry, to be honest. Like this map is 4200 by 2800, and it's like what I would classify almost as like a large map already. And so like I could, if I wanted to, go like 4x this and have 4 times the amount of scene, but at some point I don't think you're really needing all of that to be in the same scene. Like you're not benefiting from it. It's more real estate than you can ever feasibly use in a single game session. And so anyways, just my opinions, but I don't think that the scene size is a critical constraining feature of Foundry usage at the moment. Okay, so back to the notes. Good question from Ostale Metaul. Sorry if I butchered that. Some heavy music and maps compendiums out there. They're great, but would the caching of those cause some issues? So it's not caching the actual like audio file or the actual image file. It's just caching the data of like what is the path, the URL to that audio file or the URL to that image file. So no need to worry there about that. Ostale, that will not be a problem. Okay, so I talked about the caching. Example compendium APIs. So all of these changes, I showed how they work in the interface, but they also mean that there's just much better API support for working with compendium packs. So here's some examples on the left of what some of the for example, some of the compendium APIs look like. When you're creating a document or multiple documents, you can provide the compendium pack context directly to that update operation or that modification operation. Once you already have access to a document within a compendium, updating it, deleting it, that just uses the standard methods. And then you also have API support to create embedded documents within a compendium parent document. So all good stuff. I'm about ready to move on to my next topic. Let me see if there's any questions I can take real quick. All right, let's see here. Is sorting now implemented for synthetic actors? Sorting in what? Oh, in terms of like what do you mean by that, Daddy? Do you mean reordering like the contents of their inventory, for example? Hey Cody, thank you for saying that. I appreciate you you calling that out. St. Willem asks about maybe too early to ask about, but will overhead tiles be able to cancel filter illumination? Maybe, probably. I think it is too early to ask about that. I think I've been really focused on 080, and then audio is going to be next, and then we're going to get to tiles. So probably like my brain isn't in the right stage of planning for overhead tiles to really know the answer to that question yet, but I understand what you're getting at. All right, well, let me go ahead and move on. I think... Okay, one more question from Samir. Samir Abreu, a little off topic. Any news from other publishers to join Foundry with official content? Yes, actually, there's a couple coming. It's very exciting. And in fact, there's one piece of premium content that surprised me by going live today. I haven't had the chance to announce it yet, but the primarily German, although it also has English translation, Dark Eye system, Das Schwarze Auge. I'm probably butchered I'm not a German speaker. But from Ulysses Spiele, the DSA premium content went live today, and there's some other premium content, coming in the near future as well. So that's very exciting. I haven't had the chance to post an announcement for it yet, but yeah, things are happening on that front in a good way. Okay, so moving on. Unlinked actors and temporary documents. Additionally, so the restructuring of the document model has allowed for improvements to the way that unlinked tokens operate. This is something that's going to be a major headache remover for many of you. So the standardization of the document workflow means that these synthetic token documents can now sort of more faithfully, well, I wouldn't even say more faithfully, I'd say they can faithfully emulate the standard create, update, delete workflows, callbacks, hooks, etc. that a normal actor, item, active effect, etc. would experience when an actor is updated. So let me give you a demonstration of this, and hopefully there will be much rejoicing. So suppose I'm going to place a bandit here. So this bandit, as many of you would know, this token is unlinked in the sense that I can make his strength 18. Uh-oh, cannot read XP. This is a D&D thing that still needs some updating. But I can make his strength 18, and this is an unlinked actor. Previously, like, the process of a token that's unlinked to the parent actor when it updates or when it has its items change, for example, like changes to this. Oh, uh-oh. Maybe, let me do a... Maybe there's something wrong with my 5e NPC. I haven't fully finished migrating the 5e system. I think I might have been testing more with, like, player characters. I hope I didn't mess up my own demo on this, because this is a cool feature that is working, I assure you. But I think I might have messed up my own demo a little bit. I'm not sure. Sorry. Yeah, the bandito with the katana. It's like... You know what I'm going to do here? I am going to refresh this because I had it on server debugging, and that sometimes like builds up overhead that I don't need in my life. Yeah, something is not happy in the world of this unlinked actor. I'll be disappointed if this doesn't work for a live demo, because I think it's cool and it should be working well, but for some reason it is certainly not. Huh. Weird. Oh, well, that... I don't know. There's maybe something weird about my bandit. Maybe I don't know. I'll have to look into it, but I think the acolyte is working as a test token, so let me go forward with this guy. Um, you know, clear demonstration that you should be anticipating a little bit of chaos when stepping into the realms of alpha. Things are not always going to work exactly properly. There's plenty of rough edges that are going to really require, um, smoothing out. But yes, so what do I have here? So I can like create, items for the, for the unlinked token. I think someone was asking about reordering them. That should work, but at the moment I think it's not. But that's a good reminder to me that this is one of the things, like resorting your spells in the unlinked token. Like that should be working properly, but I think that's something that still needs a bit of spit and polish. Well, let me take a note of that. I hadn't thought to test that specifically. Let me make a note. Unlinked token sorting. Okay, well, hopefully I can show you something that will work, which is... so for example, like one of the things that you couldn't do in 07 is have like callback functions and hooks related to the items or active effects within a unlinked token, in that they didn't behave the same way as a regular actor would. So let me give you a little demo here. I'm going to put like an update item hook on for this, and I'm going to see if I can demonstrate. We'll try a live demo. So I just set a hook here, and then I'm going to change the name of this item, for example. Cool. So we see that my hook function fired just as it would have with a regular like item update within a parent actor. That so this is the type of thing that like currently in 07 you wouldn't be able to get visibility into like changes to the items that a unlinked token has. Now those will show up in your hooks that you've registered. And so, adding, removing, sorting. I mean, sorting's not working right now, obviously, but these sort of rough edges of working with the unlinked tokens is hopefully going to be much better after the update. So that was a little underwhelming. My demo here of the unlinked tokens didn't go quite as smashingly as I'd hoped, but if any of you have questions about like how unlinked tokens can work in the new version, go ahead and ask them, and I can hopefully show some of that. Next up, while I wait for that, oh, I see actually a couple questions. Let me ask those or answer those. Will updates to the D&D 5e system required for 080 cause issues for those on 07X? Good question. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. It depends on how that 5e update is going to be made available. I'm going to have to think carefully about the right path to follow with that. There's going to, at some point, have to be multiple versions of the 5e system where you would have like the old version of 5e for 079 and the newer version of 5e for 080. That's going to be like a little bit of a painful process that I'm going to have to figure out the right way to handle it. I'll do as much as I can with the built-in package management systems, but I think to a certain degree, especially during the alpha phases, I don't think you'll be able to get the like 08 compatible 5e system directly through the browser. You'll probably have to install it just via a manifest link, at least at first. I don't know. It's something that I'm going to definitely have to explore and figure out how much conditional logic will be needed in order to like have a 5e version that supports both. I think in this case it's going to be too much. I think it's going to be too difficult to do that. So probably the plan will be keep 5e system stable on 07 for as long as possible, and then have a new 5e version for 08 once 08 becomes release version. To be determined. Basically, it's gonna be a bit of a process. We'll see. Oh, let's see. Kremek asked something about polymorphing an unlinked actor. Can we save a previous document? Yeah, that's a good note. That's a 5e thing that I'll have to look into, but 5e polymorph unlinked. I think probably what's going to happen there is like the original data is going to have to be saved somewhere, and I'm not sure, exactly where, but that it makes sense that that's a needed feature. Mooman, probably don't need the owned item hooks if you have an item class that can implement pre-create. Yeah, that's exactly correct. So now you'll be able to implement the pre-create method, which is async, by the way, if you need it. You'll be able to implement the pre-create method on your class directly, and you won't need to worry about hooks at all. Any word about an offline character editor? I don't know, Mike. I certainly don't have any word about it, any news. As far as like, will there be that? I'm not sure. Maybe someday, possibly, but there's so much work to do that's something that's like not really yet near the prioritization line. Question from the perspective of a normal user by Sir Mao. Will having to stay with 7.9 mean modules that get adapted to 8.0 won't be usable or available for 7.9? I think, different module developers will be able to follow their own paths with this. I think many modules will work fine for both 7.9 and 8.0. I think some modules will probably require a new version when you move to 8.0, and it'll be up to those authors to decide like how they want to manage that changeover. My philosophy that I'm going to probably follow and would encourage other authors to follow is to keep your main module version as the one that is intended for the release version of the software. So as long as 08 is alpha or beta, don't make your module, if it doesn't work for the release version, don't make that the one that's like on the website. So assume that most users are using the release 079 and target your modules for that, and just have a separate branch or have a different version of your module that's ready for 08. And when the time comes that 08 becomes the release branch, like that would be the time to release the release version of your module that's designed for 08. Question from Flo about what's about those mix-ins. Are they still a thing? There is still a mix-in on both the client side and the server side. Yeah, it it combines with so like the way that a class definition looks on the client side is it looks like this. So the combatant class is a client document mix-in that extends the base combatant, and the server side definition looks the same way. So the client document mix-in, it adds some things that are needed by all client side documents. So what applications, a cached sheet, their initialization workflow, what folder they belong to. This allows every client-side document to have these same attributes in a predictable way without these needing to be defined on every base class. So yeah, they're still a thing, and they're still very valuable in terms of the functionality that it brings to all client-side documents. Um, yeah. Um, can we expect an ambient sound toggle like the light with right-click? Yeah, I think definitely that makes sense to do that as part of the sound update. Um, Memorath asks, do I have any plans or ideas for easy-to-use core features which add RP immersion, such as stores, buying, selling, patrols, battle cries, or similar? I think, Memorath, that my goal with the core software is to provide the underlying architecture and flexibility that would allow modules to do those things. So I think like a store for buying and selling, a, patrolling guards that, have like little things they say, or like a town crier or battle cries or things. These are things that I think I really envision these being carried by modules that can do very specialized things in exactly the way that you want. And it's really more about me providing the underlying framework so that modules can do whatever they need to in order to make that happen. Okay, so I've got a few more things to cover before my voice completely goes. Um, So consequences for canvas objects. This is pretty important. So I want to make sure to cover this for the developers in the audience. A key consequence of the document change that, all primary data types are documents is that the prior approach to objects on the canvas is no longer viable. So what previously happened is that the placeable object and its subclasses um, double dipped by providing both the rendering logic for how should this thing be displayed, as well as the data management logic for how is the actual data structure of this thing stored and managed. Um, so this ended up kind of overloading the role that the placeable object was playing by having it do too many things. It was both the pixie object and the document manager and the thing that's in your scene data. It was kind of all of that all in one, and that was sort of too much for that one class to be doing. And so this was the right moment to reassess that, and this is one of the important changes that may affect some of you in your modules. Um, so now, the placeable object class, for example, the token class, now only handles the rendering, the canvas rendering component of that functionality. So the this thing, like this thug, this is still it's still a token instance. That's unchanged. That's exactly the same. So, the APIs for interacting with this stuff on the canvas, for placing it, all of that, still the same. But what is different is that the token object itself is no longer what's used to manage the underlying data. There is now a token document, which is the underlying document class that handles the CRUD workflows, that handles the fact that it's a member of a parent scene. So like its parent is the scene. It has all its update, create functionality, all of this stuff. This is in the document, and the canvas object simply references the document rather than trying to also be the document. Um, so that's an important change. Um, Now, it's mostly backwards compatible, depending on what you're doing. Insofar as, like, for example, my token, the token document is your document, but there's still like a t.data. Like your token data still points to the token data of the token document. It kind of forwards along. If you call like token create, for example, if it's a deprecated method, but if you were to call that method, it's going to forward your request on to to create a token document. So a lot of this stuff is going to be, you know, backwards compatible, but there are some. It's not entirely backwards compatible. So some function signatures where, you know, previously what it expected was a token instance. Um, Now that function may make more sense for it to accept the canvas token, or it may make more sense for it to accept the actual token document, depending on what you're doing. Is it more managing the underlying data, or is it more like displaying the the image of the thing on the canvas? So there's a clear separation of concerns and separation of responsibility here, which was it was important to do, and I think that's a needed change, but it is a bigger change. Um, so you know, separating that handling is something that is an important step, and it will take, as Freeze says, it'll take a little bit of getting used to. But I think everyone will survive this. It's just going to be a little bit of an adaptation period to get the hang of the new normal. Um, So yeah, so for example, if like we're thinking about the scene itself, so canvas scene, the tokens in the scene, this collection of tokens, these are all the token documents. And then if I were to say map those token documents onto their canvas objects, like they don't have canvas objects at them. Oh, objects. I was like, that doesn't make sense. They should have. Um, Yeah, so they do all have canvas token objects. Each of these token documents has a token object which is being used to represent it upon the canvas. Um, yeah, so I think that's pretty much what I've covered here. Let me see if there's any questions, because I know this is one of like the bigger changes that I've shared. Chicken asks, in theory, could you pair multiple tokens with a single token document? In theory, yes. Although that's not the default behavior. The default behavior does assume a one-to-one mapping of the token document to the visualization of that token document. And you know, there's good reasons for that. For example, like the XY coordinates of a certain token, like where that token is, that's stored in the token document. So like if you tried to represent that same token document with like two token visualizations, they'd both be like on top of each other in the same place. So it is sort of more of like a one-to-one mapping, that each token document has a token object. Shouldn't break most macros that make use of token data. Yeah, it should not. Should not. Is this map available anywhere? I think so. I think I've released this one. I either have released it or I will release it in the next update. This is the Smuggler's Hideout map, which is in my my Patreon maps pack. Yeah, it's just sort of this like underground hideout, abandoned warehouse, sewer system. You get it. Flo asks, will systems be able to extend classes, such as the combatant, with the pre-functions? Yes, absolutely. So you'll be able to extend your own custom combatant class, and with that custom combatant class, you could define a custom like pre-update for each combatant. So yeah, you can. That's very flexible, and in fact, that's a good question that segues me into the configurability of documents. So many more things can be configured now via the config object than what was previously possible. So for example, you were asking about combatant. well, I guess combatants only have two things that can be configured, but others have more. With the combatant, you can configure a custom document class. You can also configure a custom sheet class for managing that combatant. So, for example, if I, were to, I need to yeah, that's not going to work right now. There's a change coming to combat, which still requires one of its rough edges to be polished out. I'll save that for a different time. Combatants maybe not the best example for a live demo, but yeah, you'll be able to do that exactly as you envision, Flo. Simple question, but is there any plans for easier compendium sharing between worlds? It's a thing that I know could use a better solution, is making it easier to get your compendium that you created from inside the application and then share it with a different world. That process is currently clumsy, and that's something that I definitely want to do a better job with. I don't have what I'd call a plan for that yet, Akmeth, but it is something that I'm like very much aware of as something that needs some improvement, and that's something that I will very much try to improve in the future. Kaharos says I might have skipped an entire bullet point. Maybe I did. Let me see. Did I skip an entire bullet point? Oh, improvements to import-export. Yeah. Improvements to import-export. This isn't a huge deal, but the workflows that you have whenever a document either goes into or out of a world or into or out of a compendium, for example, there's helper methods on either side of that. So the class can take some pre and post behaviors whenever the data comes out or goes back in. It's just a more flexible design, which now applies to every document type. So for example, I think like scene does this, for example. Let me see. Scenes do a lot of things, so maybe it's not the best example, but yeah, to compendium. So when a scene goes into a compendium, like I change some of the data to put it in a naturally sort of stored state, or when something comes out of the compendium, it gets some things reset, and that's something that if you have specific compendium import export needs, that's something that you would be able to extend in a module. Okay. We're getting there. My voice is really starting to go, so I'm going to push on. I mentioned that many more things are configurable in the config. Some things are actually also configurable in the class definitions themselves, so things like the default token artwork or default actor artwork is something that you could configure. So for example, if I take my Dragonborn cleric here, in a module you could configure for the actor data the default icon. So the fact that these data classes exist now can allow for some of the default values to be stored in a way that can then be configured by downstream modules. So like if I were to do that and then I go and create an actor, my new test actor would start out with the portrait of this Dragonborn. So for like tokens and stuff, that can be handy. Yeah. Okay. I think I've got like a couple more sections that are going to go a little bit faster. I'm going to read these more as like bullet points, and then I'm going to do another license key giveaway. Other major features. Allow a... Oh, you know what? I want to move this down to... I don't want to cover this here. I'm going to move this down here. Okay, so the Foundry web server is now upgraded to HTTP 2 if and only if you provide a SSL certificate, which allows for, among other things, faster serving of assets in a self-hosted environment. Someone says loud music. Let me turn it down a little bit. Sorry. It's already pretty low. So yeah, so that's very exciting. Just faster serving of assets. Everyone likes that. Another thing that's very exciting is that we have added a lot of consumables icons to the core icons library. 488 consumables icons to be specific, for things like vegetables, all your turnips and squashes and onions and potions, all manner of different potions. There's great icons for them. We've got a whole category for nuts, because that's important. It's important stuff for role playing. Your variety of nuts that you can bring into your sessions, and eggs. There's so many different types of eggs, which is great. So yeah, more bundled icons in the core software for you to use for creating your items and abilities and stuff. Yeah, you're all going to love my nuts. Everyone will enjoy the icons. I mean, clearly. All right. Yeah, this one's pretty interesting. Foundry VTT now supports a no canvas mode, which enables a specific client to disable the game canvas and avoid any associated performance requirements of having the canvas enabled. So let me show you what this looks like. This is a client level setting, so each individual user could make this choice. It's obviously not disabled by default, but it is a new thing that Foundry can do. So I can do this, and it's gonna force me to reload. But now I'm in Foundry VTT, and there's no canvas. I've just completely disabled the canvas, but I can, for example, still. Ooh, weird that CSS kind of popped in slow there. I can still, of course, like use my character sheet. I can, create macros and roll dexterity saving throws, and I can, create items and listen to music and browse compendiums and put items on my character sheet and all of that. I can do everything that I can do in Foundry just without there being a canvas. So it just disables the map and means you don't need a GPU. You don't need as modern a computer. The resource requirements are far less. And yeah, someone asked combat. Yeah, so combat. This is kind of a new thing, but the combat tracker, as you notice, works here without the canvas and without there being a specific token involved. And yeah, so this is a brand new feature that will be possible starting in 08. Flame Wave, that's a great suggestion to set a custom background image. I totally should absolutely support that. I haven't done that. But yeah, absolutely, like putting a custom background image is something that you could do. It's not supported yet, but Flame Wave, that's a pretty no-brainer that I should definitely consider adding support for. But yeah, so I mean, I hope that most people won't need to use this mode, but I think having it available is a really nice thing to do, and it makes sense. And this will have some consequences for module developers, because it means that if you're developing a module that does something on the canvas, you will need your module to be sensitive to the fact that some users may have the canvas disabled. So if you provide, say, 3D dice, we talked about Dice So Nice previously, you'll have to decide how you want to handle that in cases where the user does not have the canvas enabled. There's a setting you can check to see whether they have the canvas disabled, or you can also just simply check canvas ready, and you'll always get a true-false test of whether or not the canvas can be used. But you know, if you're providing fancy token effects or something, you might need a little bit of extra logic in your module to not try and force some of that functionality in cases that the canvas is not actually rendered. Okay. Yeah, so combat encounters can now exist without a designated scene, meaning that you could have a combat encounter. So let's see. So this one was created with a specific scene, but suppose I were to change this combat encounter such that it live demo here. Hopefully this works. So you'll notice that I changed this combat encounter so it no longer has a specific scene. And as I'm like, oh, weird with the multiple activation icons. But anyways, as I'm moving from one scene to another, you've got this same combat encounter which remains in your combat tracker across each scene, one to the next. Man, my like server debugger is just not something I should be running when I'm streaming, because it just like makes the whole thing freeze up after a little while. Yeah, so or at least I thought. I mentioned previously in my little, in my little demo that this combat stuff is one of the things that's still like got a little bit of rough edges. It does say that one's active, so I would think that that combat should have been. Oh, there's some errors. Cannot read tokens of undefined. All right, my demo failed a little bit, but the idea is that, you know, by the time that 080 is ready and all of this stuff kind of smooths out, this combat encounter will be able to be present in multiple scenes. Is kind of the vision of what should be expected here. I don't know exactly what just happened there, why it didn't, but that's for me to debug later and not to worry about right now. Yeah, it seems to be working here, but then I did something, and when it reloaded, it no longer worked. So I don't know. Still needs a little bit of looking into. All right, almost done. Well, I guess not quite. Still have a little bit more to get through. Sorry for the marathon stream, and those of you who are sticking with me are true saints. I don't know why you would spend your day this way, but you know, thanks for the company. Okay, chat preferences, bubbles, speaker panning are rescoped as client level settings. So Panda token speaker, enable chat bubbles. These can now be configured on a per player basis to allow a little bit more individual choice in terms of whether you love or hate those features, because I think there is no middle ground on these features from what I've been told. All right, so we're getting there. The code used for setup views, so for example, like the login screen, the player management, the setup screen, the code used for those. The code used for those views is now separated out into a separate JavaScript module, and so that code is removed from the regular client-side code. Performance improvements. There are a number of performance improvements which I think are notable enough to be worth mentioning. There's a new deep clone method which offers some improvements compared to the old duplicate helper. A couple of optimizations and improvements to vision computation, line of sight. The ray constructor has some efficiency improvements. The compute site algorithm is now more efficient by using a custom polygon class, which offers some more performant membership, like containment testing. And the visibility testing method of like which which tokens should be visible to you at a certain point in time has also been improved to use a more efficient test. So yeah, so a couple of good performance improvements there. The vending of world data to the client is now faster because previously what was happening is on the server side, it would get the entire content of the database and construct instances of those document objects and then vend the data of those document instances, which was kind of an unnecessary step when really all we need to do is get the raw database data into the player's hands. So now there's a more efficient way to get the world data to the player, and that speeds up the process of connecting to the server. Lastly, a document-specific semaphore has been added to alleviate issues with race conditions for updating multiple embedded documents at the same time. So what do I mean by that? So suppose I were to place like a bunch of these awakened shrub tokens, like just a ton of them. So I have all these like shrubs now on this map. Previously, like if you were to, oh gosh, it's going to be spamming these notifications forever. If you were to make updates to each of these tokens in like a loop without exercising proper async control, you would end up having a race condition that would wipe out most of your updates and cause them to be ineffectual. So now what I can do, although it is strongly not recommended, is I can, for example, like loop over all of these tokens and do like an update to that token without any asynchronous control. So I'm just going to, for every shrub, I'm going to like trigger a database write at the same time. So I'm going to kick all of these off like simultaneously. And you'll see over in the server log that there were all of these token updates that just happened. But the semaphore on the server side meant that all of these shrubs were actually updated correctly to alleviate that race condition that could occur. Now, you really shouldn't do this. Like, if you need to update lots of shrubs, you should do it all in one operation. So don't do what I just did, but if you do it, it's not gonna break, I guess. I would say. So yeah. I just hired a landscaper. I'm back to slot canyons. Okay, last little bit, and then I'm gonna take Q&A until I'm done. So a couple of package changes. Game systems can now define in their data templates a set of string fields that should get server-side HTML sanitization to protect against unwanted user input. So yeah, I don't have a great solution for modules yet, but I think I'm going to work on one that would allow a flag to be optionally sanitized if you want to store potentially unsafe user HTML in a flag. I haven't done that yet, but for things like so like a system defined like character biography where you've got like user provided HTML as the input, really we should like sanitize this stuff to make sure there's nothing suspect in there. So you can do that now. Modules may mark themselves as being a library in their manifest, which causes them to be loaded prior to other non-library modules. So if you want a module that say like adds, a different framework like Vue or, Math.js or Canon, suppose like you wanted a module that just enables like a library like that, or even a Foundry specific library of just helper methods. You can flag your module as a library module, and it would be loaded before other modules to help make sure that those functions are available for you in your scope. And then similarly, you can, for localization modules, a module may designate itself as a primary localization provider, and the module which is the primary localization provider may provide translations for the setup, join, and player screens, which previously, as of now, have been inaccessible to modules. Now, you can't inject script there. You can't provide scripts. You can just provide translation strings. But the module, which is the primary localization provider, will be able to translate those portions of the application, which is going to be great for some of the remaining spots that are hard to reach currently with localization. Two questions that I'll take real quick. Alex NZX asks regarding localization, will there be a system to allow modules to handle overrides of translations to be loaded fast? Allow modules that handle overrides of translations to be loaded last, not fast. No, but I'm not sure why that's required, because in theory, modules should be waiting for like the init event to start rendering stuff. And I would think that by that point, all of the localizations have been merged into the main sort of master dictionary. So I might not be aware of a certain pain point that you're experiencing, Alex. You may actually know about something that I'm not really tracking as like a point of pain or friction. So do feel free to provide some feedback. That's not something I've looked at though. Data now, let me make sure I'm clear. You can certainly provide scripts in localization modules. It's just you can only load those scripts for non-setup views. So you cannot load JavaScripts from a module on the setup page or on the join page. Like, this is far too risky. There's no way I cannot allow it. On those specific pages, all you can do is translate the strings. You can't include any script. You can, of course, include script everywhere else in the actual application. Origin asks, will it be possible to purchase all 5e content in the future? I don't know. I hope so, but I think it's incredibly difficult to work out premium content deals with Wizards of the Coast. They're far too big for almost anyone to work with. And so I don't know. Maybe someday, but unfortunately there's nothing on the roadmap for official 5e content, I'm afraid. I think the D&D Beyond integrations that we currently offer are the best option that's available now and for the foreseeable future. Ikagia, sorry about the name, asks, now that active effects are documents, we'll be able to move them to and from actors directly. Yeah, you certainly can do that. I think you actually can already do that in 07, at least if the game system supports it. So like I can add a passive effect to this guy, and I can drag it over and drop it. Actually, maybe... I think this is because the 5e system still needs some help. Yeah, like the on-drop the on-drop active effect method in the 5e system like isn't really doing the right thing yet. But yes, in theory, that will absolutely be possible. You'll be able to move to copy effects from one actor to the other very easily, so you can say like propagate the effects of a buff or a debuff spell to others who should have that same effect. All right, let's see. One or two more questions, and then I want to kind of wrap up here. Um, do I have plans to add different payment gateways? Not at the moment. Sorry, Eduardo. I understand why you'd ask that, but the answer is no. I don't have any plans for that at the moment. Johnny C, the PF2E system is amazing in Foundry. Yes, it definitely is. Love to see some official love from Paizo with it. I think there's a far better chance of you seeing that than seeing some official WotC content at the moment. I have had some really great conversations with Paizo, and I won't say anything more about it, but I think we are hopefully going to be able to do something. So yeah, very excited that hopefully that will be something to look forward to, later this year, next year, whenever it happens. Um, they've got their own lots of priorities and work to do as well, but yeah, I think that's something to be optimistic about. Um, all right. So the last thing I had in my notes, and I've been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes right now, so my voice is really starting to croak. But breaking changes. There is a list of things that are tagged as breaking. Now, as I mentioned before, some of them, most of them are not immediately breaking. They have deprecation paths. They're going to warn you. You're going to have to kind of make a change eventually. Some of them are immediately breaking, and I'm going to be working on the lead up to the 080 release to really clearly articulate exactly where those changes are and exactly what needs to change immediately versus what just will have like a graceful carryover. I think I'm probably going to have a follow-up stream next week where I'll go through every single one of those and like what is the change, what would you need to do to fix it. Um, and I'll probably also in that stream go through like what did I change in the 5e system to make the D&D 5e system work under 080. And I can go through the 5e system changes and explain like why did I make these changes and what was it about 080 that made it like a better way, a better reason to like do it this way in D&D 5e now. And I'm hoping that that stream of like going through like some of the breaking or some or all of the breaking changes and then going through the 5e system and showing like what did I change with the 5e system. I'm hoping that that stream would be really useful to devs to see like some tangible first-hand examples of like what changed before and after. Okay, for those of you who have stuck around and followed with me all the way until now, I'm going to do another license key giveaway um, to thank you all for your company and to share some of the love with you. I'm going to take note of my winners from earlier. And I'm going to rebuild the table because I know some of you weren't here earlier, and certainly some people who were here earlier have left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple minutes and I'm going to build a new table. And then we'll do another license drawing. So all you have to do is be in the Twitch chat. You have to be logged in so that you have like a Twitch username in the chat. I'm going to go through and grab everybody and create a roll table for the drawing based on that. I better mark the first one as like table 1. And then I'll make another one. Okay, be right back. Well, I'm actually not going anywhere. I'm just putting this like AFK screen on while I create my macro. Okay. Okay, I'm ready. Let me create a table for the second giveaway. Giveaway number 2. We got 498 people, so I can't believe so many of you have stuck around for all this. I'm going to give away 2 more keys. So let's go ahead and everyone summon your good luck. May the dice gods be with you. Roll table random giveaway for Foundry VTT 2 licenses. Let's go. Ooh, that was quick. I Robin or Erobin 591. I'm gonna think maybe I Robin. I don't know. I Robin 591, number 200. If you are here, what you'll need to do is just confirm in chat that you are that you accept the winnings. Otherwise, I'm going to roll again. Yeah, some of the difference between the like numbers, I didn't include any of the channel mods or like VIPs or anything in this. I love them to death, but I don't want to give them license keys here. I'll give them license keys in other venues. And yeah, and then people have to be logged into Twitch if they're gonna show up in the list. But iRobin 591. Matt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Anything from iRobin? You're all VIPs to me. All right, I don't think there's any answer, so we're gonna roll again. Here we go. All right, Nevenal, number 313, Nevenal. You are the winner if you are here. Do we have a Nevenal? Hey, Nevenal, I accept. Congratulations, you are the winner of a Foundry VTT license key. What you'll need to do and what the next winner will need to do, if you don't already have a user account on the Foundry website, please register one. If you do already have an account, that's great. Send me a DM on Twitch with your username on the Foundry website, and I will gift you a license key to that account. All right. One more key. Here we go. Everyone, conjure your luck. And away we go. Mr. Zenark. MRXENARK. Mr. Zenark. Number 299 out of 498. Mr. Zenark. Hey, that was a fast accept. I love it. On the spot. Mr. Zenark, congratulations. Thank you for watching. Same instructions to you. Please register an account on the website send me a DM on Twitch with your username. I will get those license keys to you later today, tomorrow, soon. I'll get them to you soon. Congratulations to the winners. I will do more giveaways on future streams. If I do that stream that I was talking about next week, I'll give away a key or two next week as well. Thank you all for sticking through this like pretty dry dev stream. It didn't have a lot of like shiny, beautiful stuff to show. As you all saw, it was like very kind of nuts and bolts of what's under the hood. I think I really appreciate you sticking with me and learning about some of that stuff, and I hope you found it interesting. The upcoming streams for the rest of the '08 dev cycle should have some more flashy things to show off, especially when we get to like new audio features and overhead tiles and stuff like that. Though that'll be a lot more sort of showy front-end features to show for that. But yeah. Yeah, shiny click-clacks, that's right. All right, folks. All right. Miratus, I think it's already in my Patreon pack. I'm pretty sure this one is already in my pack. I do have another map to put into it though. We'll see. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. You're all amazing. Thank you for the support. It really means a lot. I appreciate you all hanging out. Thank you for supporting the Foundry project. Thank you so much for talking about it. I mean, I see you all on like Twitter and Reddit and YouTube and just kind of like sharing that, Foundry's working well for you, and that just is so valuable. So thank you so much for doing that and for spreading the word and for letting people know that, this software is cool, and I just genuinely appreciate that so much. And yeah, it's letting me do what I'm doing and letting me focus on continuing to make it better. So thanks so much for that support. And yeah, I saw someone ask about Patreon. It is Patreon/FoundryVTT. Please feel no pressure whatsoever. It's really just an optional extra thing where I like do some little stuff. But if you want to give a little bit of extra support, you can find me on Patreon, Patreon/FoundryVTT. Consider it. Please, no pressure. It's just totally optional. It's just a little extra. Twitter, YouTube, you'll find me there, and I'll upload this video to YouTube at some point in the next day or two. All right, folks, cheers. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, your evening. Have a great upcoming weekend, and I will speak with you again soon. Happy gaming, folks.